195 countries and 193 countries are members of the United Nations. The second is the United Nations obviously has a General Assembly of all these member states. It also has a Security Council of 15, but that Security Council has 5 permanent members who have what is called the veto powers to agree or disagree with something which the General Assembly decides to pass as a resolution. I know Lakshmi ma'am just used her teacher voice. I will use my military voice if you talk in between, so don't talk. If you have to talk, you can just go outside. So the United Nations has a Security Council. The Security Council has 5 permanent members, and yesterday I believe General mentioned why India is not in the Security Council. So for Indians, I think it's worth considering. It's time for India to be in the Security Council. We are the largest country in the world by population. We are a very fast-growing economy. We have a strong military, and we have an important presence not only in South Asia but in the world. So that's one thing anyone comes for a UN, MUN must think that India should be on the Security Council and taking decisions and helping to make the world a better place. The third thing you should remember is that the UN came out of a vision post the Second World War. 130 countries virtually took part in that war, and people were tired of warfare as a means of resolution of conflicts and disagreements. That's the reason the UN came about. So that's what you learn as a delegate. Dialogue, agree, disagree, but don't go to war to resolve conflicts. That's the sort of skills that you also learn as a MUN delegate. And the greatest skill that you can learn is not just to put your point across forcefully. It's also to listen empathetically. So are you listening carefully? For example, if you were a Palestinian delegate or you were an Israeli delegate and you were talking to each other, you may realize that the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip live on an area which is roughly equivalent to Mahamaya flyover in Noida to the Pari Chowk in Greater Noida, and put 30 kilometers of width. That's where millions of Palestinians live. And while some people did horrible things, but there are many women and children there. If you were a delegate, you would be communicating that. Without food, water, jobs, a means of livelihood, a means of making their children's lives better, to support their families. And if you're an Israeli delegate, you'll probably say, we can't live in a place where we are always threatened, never know who's going to bomb us and who's going to kill us. And then when you have a conversation, you will come to figure that maybe there's a resolution by talking and listening to each other. That's what the UN intended to be and intends to be. Have we reached there? We haven't quite reached there. But are we trying? I think every nation is trying. And that's what the United Nations is about. And there are many other agencies of the United Nations, not just the conflict resolution ones which you hear of, but there are 15 other agencies, including the UNICEF, the International Labour Organization, IMF, the Monetary Fund, which gives loan and support to countries which are in trouble. So this is the broad charter. Have we reached there what we wanted to be in 1945? No, we haven't. But we aspire to be as a group of nations of the world. And for Indians, it's also particularly interesting that you would have heard the phrase Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. That phrase existed for thousands of years. But that organization is the United Nations. The world is one family. And therefore, can you see the world as one family is what the UN is looking at. Second, as I said, I'll speak to you about my time at the United Nations. I went as a UN officer, wore this UN beret very proudly, carried the India flag on my chest. And the initial experience was interesting. All the 5 superpower countries had 15 UN officers in the border between Iraq and Kuwait. We were to keep the Iraqis on one side and the Kuwaitis on one side. This was between the 2 Gulf wars so that they don't have another conflict, to maintain peace. And there were another 30 countries which had 5 officers each. And we were 215 officers strung along the border, along the deserts, patrolling on both sides of the border to make sure that there were Iraqi troops or Kuwaiti troops anywhere. It's an incredible experience to live with officers from so many different countries. The first few weeks were very strange because what strikes you is the diversity and the differences. Color, skin color, language, food habits, beliefs, and a lot of things look very different. But as the weeks go by, and as you start living together in the demilitarized zone, as it's called, you start realizing the similarity of the human condition. That the broad human values are quite similar. Everybody wants peace. Everybody wants wellness for their own families. And they want happiness. And the general view of what is good, what is nice, like good food from anywhere is welcome. So it was quite nice. And what was very interesting for me at that time was they used to say, "Hey Gopal, you have 2 of the best things in the world in your country. You have the best food in the world and you have the most beautiful women." So I used to wonder where they got this beautiful women of India, all these countries, because in Kuwait, the only satellite channel they used to get was Z. And on Z, they used to have all these serials and all these people.